Welcome to the MMRC podcast. My name is Jacob Johnson. I'm your host today. Today we have with us our amazing and wonderful coach. Why don't you introduce yourself today?
Yeah, my name is Christian Ani. I'm actually part of the PFP program and one of the founding coaches here at the MMRC. What else would you like me to talk about?
I don't know. Tell us a little about how you got here, what makes you excited about finance, maybe a story from your childhood, something that makes you who you are.
Should I get really personal with
really
you guys?
Personal.
Is this therapy hour?
Yeah, this is therapy hour.
All right, so I actually am going to be talking to you today about investing, which is, I think, the most important thing to me that brought me into the actual PFP program, the Personal Financial Planning Program. I was mostly interested in investing and kind of learning about how money works and how I can have it work for me. And my counselor was like, "Oh, you like this, Allie? You can teach other people about investing and teach them how to do it." So that's what really brought me into the program that I'm in now. So,
dude, that's phenomenal. So, what we're going to talk about today is all about investments, and it really is your passion with finance.
Very
it's why
much
you're
so.
here.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that. As we've been doing these interviews of all the different coaches here at the center, I'm finding all sorts of interesting things about people's backgrounds. I think that's part of the purpose of this. The purpose of this podcast is to help so everyone who listens can feel more comfortable with the coaches here in the center. Definitely. And also learn that we do have expertise and skills and there's passions we have. So when anyone can come in and want to get help with their 401k at work or with student loans or with budgeting or whatever it is, that they know that they're talking to someone that's realistic, a human, has had their own financial pitfalls in life, but is here to help. So thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's jump on in. Let's first define what is investing.
Well, investing is putting your money aside into different assets like stocks, bonds, things that people are familiar with, in order to hope that they appreciate in value, so you can sell them at a later date. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that, but it's essentially hoping that your money grows. Right? When you put your money into a savings account for a bank, you see a little kind of like a return rate that's usually like 0.5%. I think it is
0.01 for my credit union.
Worse, yeah. But it's the expectation that people will get growth on their money. That's what investing really comes down to.
So it's kind of like that little mustard seed, and you're hoping it grows into a giant tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. A little tree that can give you lots of little mustard seeds to live on for all of your retirement years.
Mm-hmm. If you wanted mustard seeds for all of your retirement.
Hopefully you got more than just mustard.
Hopefully you have other things like apples and like pears and stuff. But we'll talk about
there we yeah, I like this.
Right?
I like where this is going. Apples
so
and
I think
pears.
this is kind of branching off into one of the points of investing. I think that's important is diversification. People tend to think about investing, I think, as kind of like a gambling endeavor, right? That's what scares people mostly about investing. They think, I saw on CNN like such and such stock dropped, and it's like people are freaking out, and I don't want to lose money. And I think people don't realize that investing, when done properly, is not gambling. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's you're putting your money out there so that you can make more money later, and diversification is a key principle to that.
Yeah, no, I really like that, what you're saying. Like, it's not just gambling, because gambling is when it's straight luck, there's no skill, or whatever it is, or maybe there is skill, like with blackjack and things like that. But when you have those calculated risks based on past performances of companies and assumptions like, Apple's not going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
Big companies like that aren't just going to disappear. And so there's a lot of skills and strategies that people learn who do investing skillfully, that it's able to be a predictable. I mean, obviously it has ups and downs, like you're saying. It can drop one day and be up the next, but there's method to the madness to where you're not like just straight up blindly throwing darts at a wall and saying, I'll buy this, I'll do that.
Exactly. And you got to remember too that when you're gambling, you're betting against the house, so the house wants you to lose, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're investing, the house or the companies that you're investing in want you to win. They're trying to actively use the money that you're giving them to help improve their products, their services, help expand and make more money so that they can bring value to you, the stockholder.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's not like they're wanting to lose. When you win, that means they have won a lot
Exactly.
too. And that's how those rich CEOs buy 35 Lamborghinis, because a lot of investors are like, this is worth it, and they've made the company huge and big and famous.
Definitely.
I want 35 Lamborghinis.
Yeah. just set them up like reindeer and just have your sleigh at the back, so all just kind of lined up like Santa Claus,
exactly.
All red. And I think one of the also important parts that we need to go over too is, we're both really excited about investing, right?
Apparently,
so it's easy for us to diverge into one particular area or another, but I think people need to also understand a lot of the other basics too, such as like risks and returns. Now, people understand risk, right? They understand that you're taking a risk by going out and asking a girl out on a date. You're taking a risk that you might get rejected, or
kids have that problem all the time.
Yeah, and so I feel you there. So people are familiar with the term risk and what it means, but you're trying to look at risk versus return, right? So you're looking at if you're taking a higher risk, so you're doing, say, like mid-cap stocks or small-cap stocks, which are, smaller companies that are but they have the higher growth potential.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So they have the higher potential in order to make you more money. So that's a higher risk. But because they're smaller companies, they also come with the built-in ability to
exactly. Where some
vanish.
of those, where some of those companies, if you invest when it's small and it gets big, it's suddenly worth a lot more. But some of those companies also fail, or they don't get big and they stocks stay the same. So there is more risk with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what you're saying there.
All right. Do you think we need to discuss anything else about risk versus return? Do you think?
No, I think it's a generally common concept. Like people also think I want to talk about risk-free rates and things like that just for a brief second. Some people think, well, why not bonds? Just invest in bonds because they're guaranteed in a sense. Like they're going to pay me this much every month until the whole bond's back. That's better than a stock. Well, there is less risk there, but there's the opposite risk occurring of not making enough return on your investment.
Yeah, opportunity cost.
Exactly, the opportunity cost, which is another form of risk. So there's not only risks of losing your money or gaining money, there's risks of not gaining as much as you theoretically are capable of doing.
Losing hypothetical money.
Exactly. If the money should be able to grow in a common, diversified, in different assets and things like that you can put it in, let's assume that you can get a 5.5%, 6%, but you're only getting 3% because you're scared to take a little bit of risk. But everyone else is making 6%. There's that risk there of not making as much as you could or should be making.
Exactly.
Not like you got to be making 20, 30, 40%, but if you can make a little bit more with not much risk, it's usually worth it. That's just one thing I want to make.
I think usually we use I say we is mostly, I guess, like just the general investor will use things like benchmarks, like the S&P 500. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with the S&P 500.
Look it up.
How it's just it's a traditional benchmark used for how the
Yeah,
US stock
it's just
market
500 larger companies in the U.S. economy, and it's saying, here's how well their stocks are doing.
Exactly.
And here's like an average of how the economy is doing based on these 500 companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people use that as kind of like a benchmark of how much return they could have gotten throughout that year. So if the S&P 500, I think it returned something closer to like 16% or something last year, somewhere around there. So you were talking, let's back up, I think, a little bit. You're talking about the risk-free rate. Now, what we're trying to look for is you have the risk-free rate, like you were talking about with bonds, usually cash equivalents like treasuries, and when you take out bonds with the U.S. government, right? The U.S. government's not going to fail. They're not going to not pay back their bonds, and so their interest rate is much lower than you can get from something like the S&P 500. So that goes back to our opportunity cost when you're investing in the treasury bonds versus what you could have gotten with the S&P 500.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our opportunity cost is like, yeah, you're safer, but you're barely chasing inflation at what treasury bonds tend to have. So
cool. No, that makes sense. Why don't we move the conversation to the next point?
Sure thing.
And get talking about different types or styles of investing.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
What people tend to have branch investing into two different categories. There's active and passive. Now, what's the difference? Active investing usually means that you have a fund manager who is controlling the stocks that are going in and out of a fund.
Okay.
Right? They have this pool of stocks, pool of companies that they have selected, and they're buying and selling all the time in order to maximize returns. Right? And that tends to come with higher fees. And passive investing, which is usually something that tracks a benchmark like the S&P 500, tends to just follow what the S&P 500 is doing. That's all their goal is just to hold on to the same returns that the S&P 500 will return. So it comes down to personal preference on investors of what they feel. But I think a lot of our listeners would be more interested in passive investing. Now, why is that? Because a lot of people don't want to deal with their investments. They don't want to look at quarterly statements and reports and
all
this
that
and
stuff
and the
that
other thing.
we don't even like in the finance profession.
I know.
I hate those things. This is what I want to do as a career.
I don't want to stare at spreadsheets all day. And exactly. And so
But there are people that we pay to do that, and that's where those active managers come in.
Exactly. And so it comes down to what kind of style you're familiar with and what you really want to do. But I think passive investing is probably one of the most approachable for the students here at UVU and the staff, honestly.
Exactly. If you're new to the investment market, or if you're recently married, or you just graduated or about to graduate, and you're going to start doing something with retirement money, start saving. I mean, passive management is good. Investing in funds that are automatically traded or rebalanced based off a formula, so it's really cheap to use. So that's kind of the ideal for someone that's brand new to the investment industry.
Exactly. And you have to remember that you're going to pay a fee for any type of investment strategy. You're going to pay a commission for buying a stock. You're going to pay a fee on a mutual fund. You're going to pay a fee on an ETF, which is a more recent type of fund that has come out that has substantially reduced fees because it's more automated on what the fund tends to track. And so that's what I think that we can recommend here at the MMRC is people more kind of look into passive investing strategies. And that's what people tend to pursue whenever they go into retirement, right? They put their money into this vehicle, the 401k, and then the 401k holds all these funds, and then those funds will just start growing. And that's what you want. You don't want to deal with looking at different numbers and picking and choosing stocks and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings us to a vital question or an important question. A lot of college kids will come in. They'll be like, hey, I'm still in college. I've got 3 years of school. There's not a lot of money to start saving. How do I know if I should be investing right now? Who should be investing right now?
Honestly, I think everybody that has any sort of income should be investing.
Okay.
And what's amazing about right now is that we're seeing a lot of different companies come out that have really minimal investing requirements. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, for your traditional discount broker, like something like a TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Schwab, things like that, there tends to be some sort of limit that you have to deposit with them before they will let you start trading. In their format. This can range from $500 to $1,000. I think Vanguard has a $50,000 requirement to deposit directly with them. And you're starting to see a lot of different, especially like phone apps. I mean, you have things like Acorns, you have
Robinhood.
Stash, Robinhood. You can put money into that, and you can start off with $5.
Right from your phone.
Exactly.
While you're listening to this podcast.
Perfect. and so I think these options, I have a friend right now who actually opened a Stash account, and she was super excited, and she was messaging about, oh, I got this return, and sending me your portfolio and stuff like that.
Screenshots.
And she started out
with
Instagram
trend.
Yeah. And she started out with $20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you have a lot of students complain about that. Oh, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have, I'm not wealthy. I want to wait until I make like all this money before I start investing, because there's a stigma with investing that it's only for the rich people. But people need to, I think, reverse that thought process. They need to start thinking, investing is how people got rich, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody has gotten rich from a 9-to-5 job. Not a single person, ever. It's always what you do with your money. Mm-hmm. It's the putting into your 401k, maxing out your 401k, maxing out an IRA, and making sure that money grows for you. Because if you tried to save up, say like, I think the average recommended amount to have at retirement is somewhere around $1 million, $2 million, I think, for someone around our age, in order to just sustain about a $60,000 a year.
Yeah, I see numbers differing from
right
1.4 to 2 million,
somewhere around
something
there.
like that.
And if you tried to save $1 million, think about it. If you made $100,000 a year and I tried to save $1 million, you'd have to save every single cent
for 10
years in order to save $1 million. And you're still on the low end of how much you would need at retirement.
And when you're 55, still living in Utah, graduating from UVU with 17 kids, or however many you have, you're not going to be saving every penny ever.
Exactly.
Let alone when you're 55 and want to retire in 10 years.
And that's not what we're here to recommend, is that you save every penny, right? You want to recommend just a set amount. Mm-hmm. Typically, what you want to be putting away is something like 15, 20% of your income. But even starting out with 10, I think a really good rule of thumb is we have a lot of students here that I think are part of the church, and they also donate to the church and other charitable organizations, and they usually hold about like 10% for their donations, right?
Yeah.
Something that I've recommended to a lot of these students is, can you match that? Can you match that for yourself?
Yeah.
Right? If you donate 10% to your church, you don't even think about it. Can you do another 10% for
donate
yourself?
10% to yourself at 65.
Can you donate 10% to your 65-year-old self?
To your I'm not working 40 hours a week anymore fund.
Exactly. To the I want to be, sipping margaritas on a beach somewhere fund.
Yeah.
And so I think that
I want to be watching TV in my underwear, watching my orange tree grow in California type of fund.
we have a different idea of retirement.
Everyone's different. It's beautiful.
So I think that's probably one of the things that I tell clients, and you see this aha moment. They're like, yeah, I can totally do that.
Why not?
So, I mean, it all comes down to your comfort level and how aggressively you want to save and how much you want to have for retirement. And this comes down to a bunch of calculations we're not going to go over in this podcast today. But
that's the purpose of the MMRC. If you want to get some basic information, like we're not licensed to give investment advice and things like that, but we can help teach you how these things work and help you get started if you're nervous to do it. I'll sit with you by a computer and help you create an account to somewhere and get that set up and understand what you're doing.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for at the MMRC. We're a free service for students. We want them to get that sort of help.
And what's funny is I think a lot of our coaches have opened accounts at like brokerage, discount brokers and Robinhood accounts, and I have an Acorns account, and such has a Stash account, and
Betterment.
Betterment. I have a Betterment account too. And so we're all familiar with this just out of just fun. We want to know this for ourselves, and so we are definitely I think equipped to help people start setting up where their money is going and really get a goal established.
Yeah. So now we've established a little bit about types of investing, how diversification works a little bit, what returns are, active versus passive investing, rebalancing, why, when, how much. What are some like other resources people have to think about or can utilize in preparing and learning about investing?
Some resources would be, you can do like if you wanted to just start out, you can do like Money Magazine, Money Magazine, Business Insider, things like that, Fortune Magazine. You start kind of learning a little bit about what a great resource I think for brand new investors would be Investopedia.
Yep.
Investopedia.
Amazing definitions.
Exactly. And it'll help you understand, okay, well, this is because people understand risk, but in order to like really conceptualize it, it takes, I think, a little bit more work than that.
Yeah.
Because they understand that they can lose money and that's just kind of flat out. But there's a lot to investing. There are academics who do research on this and get like doctorate degrees on investing and finance and how the markets work and different types of strategies. And so I think Investopedia is a great resource for people just starting out and learning about investing. As far as I think some other resources, your brokerage account has great resources. I know that TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Schwab, a lot of places like that have internal investor teaching modules. So they'll do like videos or they'll have like slides or interactive teaching things to show you kind of how different investment vehicles work.
Yeah. And
how to trade in certain ways. I think we talked about too is retirement. That's what the important part of investing is for retirement. People, not everybody wants to get into what we're doing, where you're watching your investments and you're studying different strategies and you're learning this and that and this and that, really complicated things. They just want to know that they'll have such and such at retirement, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's really the fundamental goal of what people want to happen. And so that's what. So make sure you do things like match your 401k. That's free money you're leaving on the table, right? Mm-hmm. And so we really want to help you understand what you're missing and what you could be doing to help improving your investments right now, because right now is a very very important point in an investor's life, because somebody who starts out around age 20, for investing is going to have a lot more money with less invested at retirement than somebody who starts at age 30. It's all about time. It's all about how much time you have.
Yeah.
Right? So the earlier you start, the better it's going to be.
I like it. Well, perfect. Well, why don't we just each share one more research, and then we can cut it here because we're kind of getting to a good time. I would like to bring up, I'm going to bring up one of your books. The Richest Man in Babylon is a fantastic book. Just simple, short read. There's probably 1,000 copies at the UVU library.
Yeah.
It's just all about having your money work for you. And it's a narrative about how this guy figures out and learns how to invest and how to utilize his money to become a wealthy person.
Exactly.
And it gives you actionable items of how you can do that for yourself, how to make your little copper coins become fountains and fountains of gold, which in them is just retirement income and what he talks about. So that's one thing that I'd recommend anyone to read.
I think it's amazing because, like you said, it's all about talking about have your money work for you. It's investing, right? It's loaning your neighbor such and such amount of money so that he can open his business. So obviously, this isn't necessarily something we would recommend right now, but that's what it kind of generally talks about is how you can invest and find investment opportunities and have your money work for you. I think one of my favorite quotes from that book is I can't quote it for the life of me, but the book was talking about your dollars or your gold coins or what have you are your soldiers, right? And they're out going and conquering for you and getting more soldiers, and you're building this army, right? And so I think that was a really interesting and I think empowering way of looking at investing, and that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Christian.
Sure thing.
It's been fantastic to learn from you and to have your valuable information here on the podcast. Just as a little blurb out to the MMRC, we're here in WB 147. We're a free service for students and faculty. We can help with budgeting, debt, student loans, basic investment, understanding and how to set it up or get started. And we also help with taxes during the tax season. So we're a free service. We're available to all students. And it's been fantastic to have you get on the program, Christian.
Yeah, thank you so
the
much
Money
for having me.
Management Resource Center podcast.
All right, thank you.